Hi guys! Today we're going to go over my 2021 reading stats. I love this time of year. I love looking over the statistics for all the books I've read. I currently log my reading through Goodreads. I know that's not everybody's favorite platform and that the StoryGraph, I believe, is the other kind of popular one, goes into much further detail as far as like the types of books you've read, like the breakdown of all the moods and like the reading kind of pace. Unfortunately, I haven't really been great at logging my reading on there as well this year, so I won't be referring to that, but Goodreads does have a bit of a breakdown, not quite so much on the mobile app, which is really annoying. Like you can see your 2021 books in review, but if you go on the web browser version, there's like a ton of other things you can look at. So I'll be looking at those today and sharing them with you guys and sharing my reactions and thoughts, and yeah. All right, so starting off with sort of the main My Year in Books, this is the one that Goodreads sends you like push alerts and emails to look at, and you can share it with your friends on social media, which I think is really cool. Looks like I have read 139 books so far, and it is December 18th, so the year is not quite over. I think I'll hit 140, so that'll be really cool. I set my goal for 100 this year, where I believe last year I read 55 books, so that was a really insane improvement on the number of books read this year for me, and I'm really happy with what I was able to get to this year. I also read 48,179 pages. The shortest book I read was the Tea Dragon Society, which does not surprise me. It's a cute little graphic novel, and that was only 72 pages. And the longest book I read was The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. I finally got to that one. It was intimidating because of its size, but I think where it's a standalone, it's actually a much shorter story than most fantasy series, so I really enjoyed that one, and that was really cool. I am kind of surprised that's my longest book, though, but I think it's because I kind of put a pause on Wheel of Time. Those books usually clock in at around like 800 to 1,000 pages, and this was the first year in the last couple of years that I haven't finished a Wheel of Time book, so whoops, but that's what 2022 is for. My average book length was 346 pages, which is okay. It's a little on the shorter side of things, but I did read a lot of graphic novels as well, and that factors into your average book length, so that's also not terribly surprising. Most popular book that I read was A Court of Thorns and Roses, which, considering how much this blew up on TikTok over the last few years and just how popular Sarah J. Maas is in general, not surprising at all. That book was shelved by a lot of people. And my least popular one was The Strange Academy Volume 1. Again, another graphic novel. I feel like people don't log graphic novels and comics quite as much on here, but I do like to keep track of everything I've read, so I did include that. And that one was really good. More people should pick that one up, especially if you like Doctor Strange as a character or more of like the magical side of Marvel. And that's generally where my interests lie with it, so that was cool. I enjoyed that one a lot. My average rating for 2021 was a 3.8. Not horrible. Definitely, that's actually pretty good, honestly. I don't think I read a lot of like 1 or 2 star books, so I'm pretty happy with that. This is interesting. The highest rated Goodreads book that I have read this year is A Court of Mist and Fury, which is book 2 in the Court of Thorns and Roses series. And I knew this one is like the more widely regarded to be the best in the series, but it is interesting that like it has such a high ratings just in general on Goodreads. This beat out all 138 other books that I had. Interesting. I guess like if you make it to the second book, you already like the series, where like if you read A Court of Thorns and Roses and it's not your thing, you're gonna rate it like, you know, a 1 or a 2 and then just not continue. But if you do continue, like the likelihood that you're gonna continue to rate the series higher is also high. So I guess that sort of makes sense. I'm just surprised that was the highest rated one in general. I also got a little bit more into actually leaving reviews this year on Goodreads. Last year or in 2020, I would just give it like a star rating and then move on, but I did try my hand at actually writing some reviews this year, which was a fun experience. I'm still getting kind of used to what my favored tone is. Like funny reviews are always amusing, like to me as a reader, so I think I started off the year leaving much more formal reviews, but by the end I was leaving like sort of funnier, shorter ones. So I think I'll probably continue that, just where I also have a booktube I end up talking about books a lot. So my more in-depth thoughts will probably, like, it just suits a video format a bit better, or I think I'm better at that than I am at leaving like a written review. But I do love to leave funny comments with my thoughts. So I'm not going to go over all the books that I read in 2021. You can watch all of my monthly wrap-ups from this year if you're interested in looking at that, but I'll point out a couple standouts. How the King of Elfhame Learned How to Hate Stories was the first book I read, and I remember read that New Year's Eve into New Year's. So I read that in one sitting because it's a fairly short book, and yeah, I don't know, I just very distinctly remember reading that on New Year's, and then at like midnight, I was like, well, that's my first book done already, and the year had literally started an hour before, so that was pretty funny. I do like how they kind of arranged this and make the bigger books like your 5 stars. So I'm just going to scroll through these, and if you're more interested in them, you definitely, again, check out my monthly wrap-ups from this year, or go to my Goodreads. That will be linked down below as well. So feel free to friend me on there. I had a lot of 5 stars. I'm pretty happy with that. I read the Wayward Children series this year, the entire thing that's out so far, and those were really good. Also got into Taylor Jenkins Reid this year. I know she's really big pretty much on every book platform, but I hadn't read her before this year. Also started Saga, which is really good. I need to finish that. I've been like holding off on it because I know it was on hiatus, but it's coming back next year. So I should probably finish up the last few volumes that I have before the next one comes out. Tried my hand at a couple more like traditional historical romances. That was an interesting experience. I think Bridgerton got me more interested in the genre, and I know a lot of romance YouTubers are fond of historicals. Oh my god, I read so many that it has to load more. I don't know, I feel like I read like a really good variety of stuff this year. Fantasy is my comfort zone for sure, but like I read a lot of romance. I tried my hand at some more sci-fi, which is like way out of my comfort zone. Some more thrillers. Sundown Motel was so good. And yeah, this is my most recent sort of batch of reading. I just finished The Dragon Republic last night. You can see my thoughts on that shortly. In my last review of the year, see, like, the length of my first review was like paragraphs, and my last review was like a single sentence. So again, 139 out of 100 books that I set for my goal. I'm pretty happy with that. Now let's get into some of the deeper details. So if you go under my books, you can also see statistics, and it breaks it down by year. So you can see at the top here, I had 139 books, whereas 2020 was 55 and 2019 was 5. That was mostly Wheel of Time, I think, actually, too. So I don't know. And then like the few years before the hand, I was not great at logging my reading, so I don't really have any data for that. But you can also look at your pages, which is pretty much correlates with the amount of books you read. You can see that 2019 does jump a lot though, because like those 5 books I read were quite long. And then you can also see an interesting kind of scatter graph of your reads and like when you read them versus when they were published. So like all these are what I read in 2022, and you can see I definitely read much more like modern new release books, but I did delve into some older ones. Never Let Me Go is from 2005. I read that this year. Practical Magic was from 1995. I read that in October, I believe. Howl's Moving Castle, one of my favorites, was published in 86. That's older than I remember it being, but Where the Heart Is, also 1995. Yeah, I definitely want to make a goal in 2022 and, you know, beyond to read more backlist titles. New releases are really fun, but there's so many good books out there that are just older that I haven't read. So Tolkien specifically, I do want to read more. I've only read The Hobbit from Lord of the Rings, so that's another goal of mine for 2022 is to read some more older books. This is a fun breakdown as well. You can see your books over time, organized by month. Looks like September was my best reading month this year. I read 18 books, and that definitely includes, again, graphic novels. You can see there's at least 2 and a couple novellas on here. So romances I also get through quite quickly, and I read a couple of those in September as well. And then July was also a really good reading month. 17 books read. A lot of time this summer, I guess. So far, it looks like, I mean, we're only halfway through December, so I've only read 4 books at the moment. I'm hoping to bump that up to at least, you know, 7 or 8, but we'll see. You know, I think 7 to 8 is more of like the more reasonable range, but I do read about at least 10 every month. So I'm pretty happy with that. You can also see your pages over time, which again is a pretty similar spread. But, ooh, let me go back. I think if you go back to books and details, you can see the breakdown. Yeah, the breakdown of the books you read and like how you rated them star-wise. So I only had one book that I rated 1 star this year, and that was From Blood and Ash. I DNF'd that one. And if I DNF a book like really early on, I will not give it a star rating. But I feel like I got far enough into this one that like I gave it 1 star because it was bad, and I stopped reading it because it was bad. So everybody's got kind of a different system with their star stuff, I think, though. I did read a handful of 2-star books. A lot of those were like bad romance books, it looks like. My Heart is a Chainsaw. That one just wasn't for me. I don't know. I know Kayla from Books and La, that was like one of her favorite books of the year. Court of Frost and Starlight. That was a weird, pointless book. But yeah, for the most, like the majority of the books I read were 3 stars and above, which I think is fantastic. I at least liked most of the books that I read. And 4 stars is definitely like my biggest category. I think I have gotten a little bit more strict with my 5-star like ratings this year. A book really has to kind of give me a certain feeling for it to be a 5-star book. Whereas I believe like in 2020, where I just sort of picked up reading a little bit more heavily again, books that I think I probably would have rated 4 stars this year ended up being 5 stars, but there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not going to go back and change my ratings unless I actually reread it, but I think just especially the sheer volume in which I read, I was able to kind of distinguish what was a 5-star book versus a 4-star book for me a little bit more clearly. So I think that's reflected pretty well in my breakdowns. Yeah, let's see the details for 2020. It was a much more like even spread, I think, of what was a 5-star versus a 4-star versus a 3-star. So but yeah, those are sort of like the broad strokes of my reading year. It's, again, fun to see kind of the breakdown of your 5-star ratings versus your 4 stars and how many books you read and how many pages you read. I know some people don't look at this stuff until like the end of the year, but I do peek periodically to see how I'm doing. And again, overall, I'm really happy with my reading year for 2021. I read way more than I thought I was going to. I read way more like amazing books than I thought I was going to. And yeah, I think this is a pretty good reading spread. Let me know down below, how many books did you read this year? Did you hit your Goodreads like goal? Also, let me know if you're on the story graph. I'm again considering moving, maybe not moving entirely over there, but also trying to be a little bit more or be a bit better about logging my reading there as well, because I am a little bit more interested in sort of the depth of stats that goes into. I just want to thank everybody so much. I started this channel at the very beginning of 2021, and it has grown so much faster than I thought it would, and I've had so much fun. I really enjoy your comments and chatting with you guys down in the comments below. It's been a really fun ride, and I think this is a really great way to sort of like wrap up this year. I've had a great year on YouTube, so thank you guys if you've been here, especially from the beginning, and just know that I really appreciate everything you guys say and leave down below and whatnot. And I've said whatnot like 5 times now because I don't know how else to wrap this up. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Feel free to like this video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Have a wonderful day and have a wonderful new year. Bye.